In this tutorial video, I would like to give you a brief introduction into the Think Finance Structured Product Factory, which is a tool to simulate and analyze structured products. When you start the application, you will see the product selection on the left-hand side. And you can select products from the standard 4 categories: capital protection, yield enhancement, participation, and leverage. When you select a product, you'll see that the payoff chart on the right-hand side automatically shows the payoff of the product that you chose. Now here you have different plotting functions. For example, you can plot the payoff, which is the value of the product, or the profit and loss of the product, the return on investment, and then there are 3 risk plots. This is the distribution, the probability distribution of returns in dollar terms. Here we have the probability distribution in percentage of the market value. And here we have the leverage ratio, so how geared the product is. Now it's interesting to note that for all these plotting functions, there is an additional function here, which is the time scale, which means I can move the product from today till maturity to see how the risk or payoff profile changes over time when we go towards maturity. For example, you can do that with a payoff going towards maturity, or you can look at the risk profile if I move the probability distribution towards maturity. And I'll see something really interesting here. I'll see that at maturity, the probability distribution of returns of the product has these 2 discrete spikes in the distribution. And that's because there's a downside floor and an upside cap in the payoff. And that, of course, translates into this discrete probability to hit the floor or hit the cap. And we even see the probability numbers here. Now, this plot can be fine-tuned a bit. We have this VAR plot here, and you can change things. You can change the VAR holding period. You can change the granularity of this histogram here. You can change the opacity of this plot. You can change the confidence level of the value at risk. You can choose to show or not to show the strikes and barriers in the plot, the probabilities in the plot, the distribution in the plot, and the statistical information in the plot. So these are some of the plotting functions you can use. Now, if you want to take a deep dive into a specific product, for example, I want to know more about this product, I can select template. And now here I see the product again, but there are the different product parameters that I can change. So here I can change the underlying. So there's several underlyings that you can choose from: the product lifetime, the participation of this product, the upside participation, or the cap level of this product. One important thing to mention is when I change the underlying, the market parameters, like the underlying expected return of the underlying or the volatility, are automatically set to the long-term averages of this index here. For example, if I go back to the DAX, here the volatility and the return are set to the long-term averages. And down here we see the output, calculate outputs such as the different strike levels of the product, the underlying price, the maturity date, the market value, and so on. Now, as I said, I can play around with the market parameters. For example, I can change the volatility, and or I can change interest rates of the product, and I see it has an impact on the payoff of the product. If I press reset, then I'm going back to the original parameter settings. One important thing in this structured product factory is that for each product you can see the replication strategy or the replicating portfolio when you go on this pane here. So here you see how this product is replicated. And here we see that this capital protected certificate with cap is composed of a zero bond, a long call that creates the upside, and then a short call that caps the upside. And of course, there are composition rules that connect the strikes and the size, the contract size of these different positions, so they work together. And of course, here you can change the product and create a different product. For example, I could just decide I want to add a put option here. So I click on European, I choose a put. Let's say I'm using the size 30% of the contract size. It should be a long put option, and I click on add position. And here it is. I added a put option, and now we see there's an upward sloping payoff down here. That's the put option. Now I could decide I want to define a parameter that allows me to flexibly adjust the size of the put option. So let's do that. I'm adding a parameter here. I'm calling this parameter downslope. And I'm setting the initial value to 50% and the eligible range from 20% till 100%. And now I need to connect this parameter downslope to the size of the put option. And I can do that with the rule modeler. So I'm clicking here. And what I need to do is to replace this number with the new parameter, which is here, downslope. Click. Now the size of the put option is basically defined by downslope. Click OK. And now this new parameter downslope appears here in the parameter section. I can click on it, change this parameter, and this is the parameter downslope. So this is the size of the put option. I can play around with this now. Now, one important function is that I can backtest products in time. So let's click on the backtester. And here I see the product backtested for the last 2 years and plotted versus the underlying, which is the DAX. And I can look at the backtest versus its benchmark, or the market value and the valued risk, the valued risk over market value, or the P&L of the product versus its valued risk. Now, the important thing here is I can run more advanced backtests. For example, I can look at a longer backtest, let's say a 10-year backtest. And for a 10-year backtest, it makes sense to simulate a rolling strategy, which means I assume I'm holding this product for 1 year, and when the product expires, I'm rolling over to a new product that looks the same, but it is striked at the new level, right? So at every rollover, the product rules are rerun so that I'm rolling over into a product that is adjusted to the current market environment. So this is what I achieve here. So I use yearly rollover, and now I'm clicking on backtest. Now this backtest takes a little bit longer because I'm running 10 years and I'm rolling over, and it simulates not only the historical values, but also the value at risk at each point in time, which requires quite a bit of simulation. And now here I see this 10-year rolling strategy in this capital protected product. I can look at the historical values, so the back test. I can look at the underwater plot, so how much I would lose and how much time it takes to recover. I can look at the period returns, so this is yearly returns. I can look at the risk return chart. So this shows me the volatility versus the return. Or I can look at the scatter plot, which shows me the product returns versus the returns in the underlying. So these are a few plotting functions that you can use. If I finished my backtest, I click on Close Backtest, and I'm back at the product that I've been simulating. So this concludes our introduction to the Think Finance Structured Product Factory. I hope you found it helpful. If you want to learn more about the functions, please read the manual, which you can find when you click on this function here. Thank you for watching, and goodbye.